Good morning, students. Today, we are going to continue our previous chapter we are going through, and we were studying about the early Vedic civilization, where we studied about the coming of the Aryans, their activities, how they came to India, and what are the different changes they brought about, which all places they settled, as Sapta Sindhu, then Brahmavarta, and what they were known as or called as Aryavartas. Now, there we studied about various important Vedas, the importance of Vedas, and different type of Vedas, how it presented different thoughts and understanding and knowledge about the activities which were followed according to the Vedas, and the division of society according to the hierarchy system. Then we studied about the political scenario where Janas were there, the tribal people. Then the existence of gramas, which was in regarding to the village areas or small areas. Who were the controller there? The Brahminis. Then we studied about the importance of Rajan, who was also, or in other sense you can call it as emperor. How they all worked together and chose the important people who would lead them in various different activities or throughout their day-to-day life, and how this organization was politically so much importantly arranged that it gave security and peaceful environment and situation for the people to live into this particular kingdom or territory. Then the importance of Sabha and Samiti we discussed. Then importantly about the status of women during the time of the early Vedic period, where we studied that women were given a lot of rights and privileges during the time, where they even had right to hold properties into their own names, and certain administrative works were also been allowed to be carried out other than the religious activities, which from where they were prohibited. And so thus on, it was also stated that women, not only regarding to administrative other works, they also were given special kind of treatments in regarding to educational privileges, dancing, or any kind of artistic work that they, if anyone was found expert into. So those privileges and those kind of activities boosted the moral and the important, gave women or girl category of society people to have or find themselves to be important. Now, in this present times, also you see that in certain places these privileges are neglected, thinking that girls are lower or they are not equal to men. But think about the thinkings of the early people. They did not consider so. They gave almost a kind of equal kind of opportunity and equal kind of importance to the woman power, a girl, to a girl in the society. Now, considering that, we are going to continue with the other important topics about this chapter. Now, in this, we are going to study about what is food. Now, what do you mean by food? That we have or we need to have to live. So, in that way, there were important activities that were done for them to accumulate food, which was that activities. Most importantly, agriculture was the main occupation. Agriculture activities were the main thing through which they accumulated food. Now, vegetable, fruits, and various important crops like wheat, barley were the staple crop that they use regularly. Other than that, fruits and different kind of dry items that they used to grow, they used to consume into the day-to-day life. And even it was said that important there were certain important beverages or drinks which you can call this that as intoxicating drink. Okay, that intoxicating drink was known as soma and sura during that time. Now, intoxicating drink means it is not healthy, but during the time also it used to prevail in the early Vedic period, which the earlier people used to take, which was known as or which was called as soma and sura. And certain large community of people, a group of people also consume meat into their day-to-day diet system or food system. So this is all about a brief detail about the food structure that they followed, which was followed by the early Vedic people. Next is about recreation. Now, what do you understand by recreation? Now, in modern times, we have a lot of games, different type of games. Some of them what do we do? We like playing cricket, some badminton, some chess, indoor games, badminton, chess, ludo. Now as mobile has developed various different applications through which you can sit at home only, and you recreate, means you have a leisure period or an extra time period where you free your mind from daily day-to-day activities, and you relieve your mind. So that kind of activities that we do are known as recreation or leisure activities, or extra time activities, you can call free time activities or extra time activities. Same was also done during the early Vedic period by different community people in different ways. Some in high societies, it was chariot racing was practiced in a large number, where the high society people or the from the kingdoms or the kings, or from the status of higher status people, they used to do chariot racing. Now what you have, car racing, bike racing, you have, right? So in the same way, earlier also there used to have chariot racing among peoples. Then hunting was one of the important, or you can say most important activity of means kingdom based officials or kings during that time. Dice, then we have board games, right, like ludo, snake and ladders, then chess. These are all board and dice games. During that time also they used to have this method. So just imagine that this kind of games that have been evolved, it did not only have its important or existed in present times or recently. It existed from the long period of time, from the early. Some changes have come, and then the development new methods have come, but the prevalence we can find this kind of games it had from the earlier times. Board games, we all know, board whatever games we have in different types, which is in which boards are being used, and in that board you play games. Same way, during that earlier times also, people used to play this. All different kind of activities were done to free their mind from day-to-day activities or any kind of things, to recreate themselves or to bring a peaceful environment among themselves, and have a leisure time, an extra time to for themselves for some other activities. So in this way, what used to happen, they used to do a lot of activities and other kind of things which we find as to be one of the important things that they practiced in recreational activities. Now the question comes around dress. Now, importantly, dress was of two important pieces, you can call. One was for the upper part of the body, and the other what was for the lower part of the body. Most probably it was seen for both men and women. The lower part of the body was kind of one single piece of cloth, heavy cloth. You can call in modern times, in present times, dhoti kind of clothes which were used, and it was wrapped over the body and the lower part to cover the lower part. And the upper part of the body was a light shawl kind of cloth that was wrapped around the body. So this was the dressing of the earlier period people, which had a single cloth on the top, so lower part of the body, and a light shawl which they used to wrap in the upper part of the body. And this is how the dressing of people during the early Vedic period used to take place, or they used to practice. Now both men and women, it is found that both men and women used to wear jewels, means jewelries, necklace, earrings, bangles. Men had different shapes or sizes or designs, and women had different. But both of them, we find it that they used to wear gold, silver jewelries into their daily life. And men, they also used to have head turban on their head. So this depicted a pure structure, or the structure of the dressing sense of the early Vedic period. Then comes an important about that we have to understand in particularly is the religion part. Religion. Now, during the early Vedic period, as I've already told you, that there was an importance given to Vedas. different kind of Vedas having different knowledges, different aspects of people's life, what they had, what they believed, and what they practiced. Now, according to that, they also believed in a supreme power. Supreme power existed. They believed in this, and it was found or seen that this supreme power was considered to be the creator or maker of this world or the universe that they live, or which is found in total form of different planets, earth, stars, moons, and all. So this supreme power they used to consider as the creator of this universe, and there were different kind of gods and goddesses. In Hindu religion, if you see, we have different gods and goddesses which had its own importance and different purposes that we consider to worship in present times also. Now, the most importantly, there were certain important gods that were been earlier worshipped. Now, Indra was the god of rain. Indra was considered as the god of rain, and there were various other gods like Agni was considered as the god of fire. Then in other parts you have Surya, sun, the god of sun, who used to give light to this earth. Then you have Vayu, the god of wind. Simultaneously, if you go through your book, you will find various different gods like Soma, Vayu, Varuna. They worshipped all these gods and goddesses and believed that each of these gods had different powers which controlled different elements of the earth in different ways. Like Agni, god Agni is the controller of the fire. He provides fire and light, brightness for this world. Then you have Indra, who showers rain. So they worship for rain or any other purpose in relation to the rain or agricultural activities. They worship to rain god, to Indra, to bring about rain. So variously there are a lot of other gods, like God, who is the god of death, who was known as Yama. So variously there were different types of gods who they worshipped during the time, and which is not that they only worshipped. It continued for a long period of time. This tradition passed, this culture passed from one hand to the another, and still in present times you find, if you see the Hindu believers, you will find all these mentioning of different gods and goddesses that you find that were not from present times, but it has its existence from the earlier, during the early Vedic period when the Aryans came. So it is a long period of tradition and practice and religious activities which has passed from one generation to another, and still today there is one group of community of people known as Hindus who still follow the same rituals, ceremonies and customs, worshipping the same gods which is mentioned here, and there are others too. Now, they had important prayers, important thoughts, or important hymns. Whenever they used to pray before they used to sit down and pray, they had important songs, they had important prayers, they had important hymns to present before their goddess, different goddesses, whomever they wanted to serve or whomever they wanted to pray. So this is how it is said that people during the early period of time used to concentrate in worshipping different type of gods and goddesses, and most probably there were no in the early part of the period, most of the time it was seen that the category of people who used to do this kind of special problem, or the special category of people who used to conduct this religious ceremony, were known as Brahmins or Pandits in the present times, and they used to do all kind of ceremonial activity, religious ceremonial activities in open air. There did not to be any particular place where they used to conduct these activities. So they used to take these activities in the open air. And on the other hand, they used to also offer they give different type of offerings, like sometimes crops, sometimes even animal sacrifices were also been done during that time. And yagnas or important Vedic literatures were read, and yagnas were prepared, and homas were done during the earlier Vedic period, and this is how the religious activities used to take place in different ways. The next is about the class system. Now in this we'll be talking about the different hierarchy of people which was divided in the earlier time period. In the early Vedic period, it was seen that as per the activities or important works that were done or taken over by a category of person or a group or community of people, according to that only performing work, the society was categorized into various different parts or the various different divisions, or you can know as that these divisions were known as varnas. These divisions were called as varnas, and according to these varnas only, what used to happen, this class system was divided into different varnas or different groups. Now, what were the different type of groups of varnas? Number one were the brahmanas. The first category of people were brahmanas, who were considered to be the most educated class of people, who had religious knowledges, Vedic knowledges, Upanishads knowledge, different epical knowledges that they had, and they used to instruct people in regarding to religious activities that were conducted. The next were Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas. Now, who were the Kshatriyas? Kshatriyas were the head or those category of people who belonged from official groups or king's group or the emperor and their part of tribe, and these were regarded as the protector of the nation. The armed forces, the army people, or the soldiers who were there, the kings, their class or their generation of people, all belong to this Kshatriya group of people. Okay. The third one, Vaishyas. Now Vaishyas Now these Vaisyas were the third group of people. Who were they? They were merchants, like business, the businessmen, traders, and important economical activity kind of people who used to do important craft work or important business, small or large kind of business people who used to be in activities such as business, trading, traders. Those class of people were known as Vaishyas. Even the farmers were also included in this. Farmers, and then you have craftsmen, and so on. These were the category of people, third category of people, which were classified under Brahmanas. So first were the Brahmanas, second were the Kshatriyas, third were the Vaishyas. So Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, then Vaishyas. The last one, were the Sudras. Now these Sudras belong to the lowest caste of people or lowest group of people who were considered to be the lowest among all the races, and they were also considered to be untouchables, means lower caste. There were a lot of society problems during the time which the most probably this last category of people used to face was the known as Sudras, who were known as the deprived people or the laborer class. Most probably the lower category of job doers, or you can say laborers in short forms. These laborers were known as Sudras. Now, according to the occupation based division of the society, okay, these are all occupation or working based division of society, how, what and which kind of activities or work people carried out or followed from the earlier times. And according to that, they were divided into these four important varnas: Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Sudras. Now, a family who belonged from a Brahmanas family, and who generation continued so, were all considered to be in same caste or the Brahmanas. Okay, and there were no intercaste marriages most probably happened during that time, this in the social life. So they had a very rigid, a very strict system of following this, where there were no intermingling of lower caste with the higher caste. Most probably you will find the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, they used to move along with one another, being the upper caste of people. But the Brahmanas, along with some of the part of the Vaishyas and some of the and the Sudras, they used to hardly mingle, or they used to never mingle at all, considering them to be supreme in the authority and in supreme status. They used to make lot of differentiation in their living and workings of their lifestyle. Now these were the class in which the society was, or the class or the varnas according to occupation, the whole society was divided into. The next is the economic life. Economic life, you can see, as we have discussed about various different type of things that the Aryans or during the early Vedic period, both men and women had opportunities, and how they used to do and what they do and how the class is divided. Now according to that, lifestyle also depended upon people who were from the Brahmin society. They had a kind of life which they only had religious activities most probably to follow, to impart knowledge, to give knowledge to the higher class of people. And on the other hand, it is said that most of the other people, the lower caste people, they used to live a kind of nomadic life. Nomadic life means they used to move from one place to another, as I told you from the earlier times, in the early starting of this period chapter, where we studied that when they started coming in India, they started living in nomadic life, moving from one place to another. Later on, they settled down in a single place. Now, living a nomadic life, when they settled down in different places, and then they started considering, or they started building up their life in permanent settlements, then they started practicing different kind of activities like domestication of animal, where they started to keep pets as their animals, or domestic animals as such, from where they used to get different kind of products and different kind of things to be used into the day-to-day activities and day-to-day life. Now this later on gave them permanent settle in places where agricultural activity started. They started farming, they started growing new kind of crops, and when they started growing crops, they got a settled life, and they were not no more required to move from one place to another. And that is how they started developing their social life, economical life into their and started growing the community from 2 to 3, 2 to 4 to 5, and started, and that's how the whole community increased to a kingdom. And then the Aryan started developing. There were people who used to do for life earning, they used to craft with their own handicraft things, to make different kind of things like toys, chariots and other things, which gave them an capacity, or which developed into a new kind of skill, where they started developing a new pattern of working and occupation system other than the agricultural activities like ornamenting. Some ornament makers or jewel makers, some of them became potters, some of them became craftsmen, and started different kind of occupation. So the diversity of occupation also started growing in the later part of the period. And this is how they started, more and more people started working and earning and trying to develop not only themselves but the whole of the society or whole of the civilization in the early Vedic period. thus started growing to a new dimension. So this is all about this chapter, which is talking about the early Vedic period. Now, student, please go through this chapter, because again the same topics will be there in your higher classes. You will be studying, and you will be studying in more minute and detailed way. So if you study now the basic things, it will help you in the higher classes. So this is all for today. Other notes and other details will be very soon forwarded to you. Thank you very much.